everybody, it's Christina and welcome back to my library. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about all of the classics that I want to read and or reread. I don't really have a set time limit for this. These are just ones that I've kind of been wanting to read or reread for a while now, and I have a pretty sizable pile here. So I'm going to go through them. I'm going to try and make it a goal of reading one classic a month, and we'll see how that goes. I might end up reading more per month depending on what I'm reading and if I'm, wanting to read more. But these are the ones that I've kind of just been eyeing. I've owned most of them. Some of them I bought recently at the library book sale, and yeah, so let's get into this. I'm not really going to be discussing these in any particular order. It's just going to be the ones that I happen to pick up out of the pile. But I do have, I think, 2 books in the same series, so those will get discussed together. Everything else I'm just going to kind of talk about as I get to it. The first book that I am going to talk about is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and I actually did mention this in a recent haul video. I just bought this at my library book sale, and I haven't read The Secret Garden in probably over 20 years. I haven't read it since elementary school, and I loved this book as a kid. I read it in like 3rd grade, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was around the time that the movie came out, so I read the book, watched the movie, absolutely loved it, and now that I'm older, I've kind of been wanting to just get back to some classics that I loved as a kid. So this is one of them. I do want to read The Secret Garden, and I'm super excited to give this a shot. This one is more of a, I don't know if I want to call it middle grade or children's book, but it's definitely not considered an adult book by any stretch of the imagination, but I am excited to give it a shot. The next classic that I want to read is also a classic that I read when I was a kid. I think I was in 5th grade when I read this one, and that is Little Women by Louisa May Alcott, and I loved this one as well. I think I read it, I was in 5th grade. It was around the time the movie came out with Winona Ryder as Jo. And yeah, this book, I don't know. I just love this book so much. It was such a good book. There were so many moments where you're like crying and then you're feeling good about it. And it's just one of those that stuck with me even all this time later. And I'm excited to give this one another shot. I'm probably going to read this one sooner rather than later just because I remember loving it as a kid, and I'm really looking forward to reading it again. Next up, we have Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, and I had never actually read Jane Eyre, so this is one I'm going to be reading for the first time. And I know that when I posted on Twitter about asking you all which classics you recommend I read, Jane Eyre was mentioned a lot, along with Pride and Prejudice and Little Women. So I already read Pride and Prejudice, actually. I read that last week. I think I finished it then. It got 4 stars out of 5. I really liked it. So this one I'm going to be picking up at some point. Again, I don't know when. I actually bought this at my library book sale, and it's in really good shape. It's also a hardcover, so really nice. I only got it for 50 cents, 25 cents. It was something like that. It was a ridiculous price for such a good quality hardcover book. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. I actually don't know much about Jane Eyre at all. So I'm excited to see what this book is all about and what all the hype's about. The next book is another book that I read a long time ago, or attempted to read a long time ago. It was back in high school. It was a required reading book for me, and that is The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. I don't remember much about this at all. I know I was in high school. I don't know what grade it is. I think I was going into junior year of high school when I had to read this one, and I didn't love it. It was the same year. I think I had to read this and Siddhartha at the same time, and I actually did like Siddhartha. I think I gave that like a 4 out of 5. This one, I don't know. I don't remember it at all, and I remember not liking it, but times change. It's been a long time since I've been in high school, and now it's not required reading, so I might like it now. I don't know. Like, reviews are kind of mixed about it on Goodreads, so I might still not like it, but I want to give it another shot just to see. And again, I got this one from the library book sale as well, so if I don't like it, it's really not a big deal. The next book on my list of classics to read is The Hound of Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and this is one of the Sherlock Holmes novels. I've never read this one, but I know that there's a lot of iterations of The Hound of Baskervilles out there. There's other books that are kind of inspired by it. There's TV shows, there's movies. But I don't know much about it. Somehow I have completely blanked on this, even though I know I've seen things relating to this before. But I'm excited to read this one. This one's actually really short. I don't even know. I could probably get through it pretty quickly. 170 pages, according, I think, unless I'm not on the right page. But yeah, short one. I should hopefully get through this pretty quickly. And I don't know, this one might get put on my October/Spooktober list because it is a mystery. And I mean, it's Sherlock Holmes. It's the king of mystery. So I'm definitely going to consider putting this one on my Spooktober list, or at the very least my October list, because that's when I read a lot of mysteries and thrillers and all that kind of stuff. The next book on my list is one that I actually borrowed from my father-in-law, and I don't know much about it at all. It was never required reading for me. And all I know is that it's a classic, but I don't know anything about it. And that is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. I think this is something to do with a war, World War II. But I don't know much about it other than that. So I am going to give this one a shot at some point. I don't know when. This has actually been one that I've had for a while, but I have not gotten around to reading it yet. If you can hear my dog in the background, she is like having some sort of puppy zoomies, and you know what? She's getting her energy out. Hopefully she's not too loud, but she is like going nuts with one of her stuffed toys. And all I can see is her going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth at the corner of my eye. And yeah. But anyway, if you hear that, that's what that is. So yeah, I don't know much about this one. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but it is one that I'm going to read at some point because I am curious. And yeah, it's a World War II book, which I tend to have an interest in World War II novels. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, so the next 3 books I'm excited to talk about because they are in my wheelhouse for sure. One of them is sci-fi, 2 of them are fantasy, 2 of them I've read before, 1 of them I have not. So I'm excited for this because these are the genres that I just absolutely love. And the first one we are going to talk about is Dune by Frank Herbert. And this is a sci-fi novel, probably one of the original OG sci-fi novels. Do people still say OG? I'm going to say it because it is. But I don't know much about this one actually. I know that it takes place on a desert planet, and I think the world, the economy revolves around something called spice. But again, I don't know much else. I know that this is probably when you talk about classic sci-fi novels, everybody's going to talk about Dune. And I'm embarrassed to say that I have never read it before. So I'm super excited to see what this one is all about and give it a shot. And finally, the last 2 books on this list, at least for now, I have other sci-fis. I have other classics that I do want to read. These are the ones I just happen to own physical copies of at the moment. I don't think I have any on my Kindle, but I would have to go back and check. I don't think so though. But these are the ones I'm probably most excited for on this list, and I might get to sooner rather than later because I have been dying to reread them. And that is The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have not read these probably since high school, but, and here's the thing that's always really interesting for me, I don't normally like required reading in high school. Because I feel like I don't know, I don't want to be forced to read something that I don't want to read, but let me put this one down because I'm actually not talking about it right now. Lord of the Rings was actually required reading for me my senior year of high school, and I had actually already read it. I read it, I think, my freshman year of high school just for fun. It wasn't part of required reading at the time, and it ended up becoming required reading for high school. So I did read it again because I loved it. And I think, needless to say, I got straight A's that year because we were basically reading a book that I've already read before. So this is going to be my 3rd time reading Lord of the Rings. And I absolutely love Lord of the Rings. I love everything about this world. I used to play the MMO, Lord of the Rings Online, which actually is pretty not too bad as far as story goes and as far as keeping up with the books. It's really good. This book, by the way, has seen some stuff. I mean, I've had this. I got this for Christmas. When I was, I don't know, what year did this come out? I know I got this book for Christmas. I'm trying to see when it was published. It was published in, I don't know, because this was around the time that the book came out, or the movie came out, because it's got the movie on the front cover. Okay, so whatever, I'm going to have to look this up and put it in the little blurb below. I got this book for Christmas the same year that the first movie came out, because this is like the movie cover. So I want to say it was like early 2000s. I got it from my aunt for Christmas. So this book has been around for a very long time. I used it not only to read it the first time, but to read it the second time when it was required reading, because I didn't need to borrow the books from my school. So it's seen some stuff. It's been through 3 moves, because it moved with me to my apartment, it moved with me to my first house, and it moved with me to this house. It's been through some stuff. It has fallen into the bathtub back when I was in high school, and it has seen some things. I don't actually, look, I don't know if you can see, but there's a water stain right here. This poor book. This was before I really knew how to take care of my books. This poor thing. I don't think I'm going to read from this book this time, just because of how old and kind of not in great shape it is. Plus it's really heavy. I think I'm going to borrow the ebooks from my library, or maybe just borrow the books individually from my library and just give this book a little rest, because it's had a rough life. I thought about unhauling it and getting like newer copies, but I don't know. I've had this book for so long, and it was a Christmas gift, and I don't know. It's been through some things with me, so I kind of want to just keep it and just borrow individual copies of them, so I'm not like holding up this massive thing, 'cause this is tough to read from. And I didn't really talk much about The Hobbit, but I'm going to read The Hobbit first, because obviously The Hobbit takes place first. And I've only actually read The Hobbit once. And I didn't actually read this until college. I read A Lord of the Rings first, so I read Hobbit later. Somehow I ended up having 2 copies of The Hobbit for a while, and I actually just recently unhauled one of them, so this is the one that I have. And I'm just going to read this beforehand, and it'll be the second time that I read it. And yeah, so that is Lord of the Rings. I think I am most excited to read this one, I have to say, because I love it. I love Lord of the Rings so much. So that completes the list of classics that I want to read. Again, I don't have a timeline for this. I'm just going to kind of intersperse them throughout my TBRs throughout the next few months. Well, several months probably, because I have a few here. And then I think once I get through this list, I'm going to go through my other list, because I have, where did I put my list? Okay, I found my list. It took me a while. It was underneath all the other books. But I have quite a large list here of books, of classics that I want to read. It actually goes on to the next page here. Most of them are already in this pile, but I have others that I want to read at some point, like The Count of Monte Cristo, Brave New World, which I think is another sci-fi classic that I've never read. What else do I have on here? Fahrenheit 451. That was required reading in freshman year. Really like that one as well. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That might be a good one for Spooktober if I get to it. Although probably not. Maybe next year. I have also got The Scarlet Letter, Dracula, Three Musketeers, Gone with the Wind. If I'm feeling insane, War and Peace is on this list. I'm not sure if I'm going to read that. But I put it on here in case I decide to, read a 1,300-page classic. Who knows? And I also have Flowers for Algernon, Little Princess, which is kind of along the lines of Secret Garden. They're like children's classics. Anything by Agatha Christie. And yeah, so that's kind of my list. I have a few others on here, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But this is what I'm going to try and get through first, and then once I'm done with this pile, I will go through and get the rest of the classics done as well. So that completes this video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you subscribe if you have not. Like the video if you enjoyed it. You can follow me on social media. I have links for all of those down below. And I will see you next time. Bye!